and you're still doing it. We still appreciate your prayers, and they mean so much. And without your prayers, this would have never happened. And you will see through this testimony the truth of that. I feel this is a testimony that needs to be told, and the people that help make it happen need to hear it. That includes you, my church family, and all our friends and family everywhere. This is a testimony of miracles, one after another after another. Sisters of Faith, my UMW group, as well as my church and many unknowns, were my rock during Johnny's 84-day hospitalization. The sisters were true sisters and loyal friends. Proverbs 17:17 reads, "A friend is always loyal, and a brother is born to help in times of need." Proverbs 26 states, "Many will say they are loyal friends, but who can find one who is truly reliable?" I have right here in Jonesboro United Methodist Church. My sisters, my pastor, my parish nurse, and all the congregation have held Johnny and me up through all of this. I want to share just a few of the miracles that occurred. These were people that were placed in our path, the right person at the right place at the right time. Many times these miracles happen so fast that I would get an adrenaline rush. And sometimes it took my breath away, and a lot of the times I didn't even know there were miracles that were happening until I could sit back and process what had gone on. And there's no way it could be a coincidence. There's no way, because coincidences don't happen that fast, that many, that long of a time. 84 days is a long time for something like that not to be a miracle. It all started on December the 21st, 2017. I was at Vanderbilt with my mom. She was seeing a physician there. I had tried to call Johnny that morning, and he didn't answer. If you know Johnny and I, we probably speak, if we're not together, probably 10 times a day on the phone. So that was unusual. So anyway, after I couldn't reach him later in the morning, he called me and told me that he had been really ill. He had got us out to the walk-in clinic, and while he was at the walk-in clinic, he was hardly even able to stand up at registration. Carrie Thompson, from our Sunday school class, another person at the right place at the right time, was there, and she walked up to him and held him up by his belt so he could get registered. And she kept saying, "Let me walk you back." He kept saying, "No, I can't do it, I can't do it." I want to thank Carrie for that. Johnny was told that he had the flu. I sent him home to get medication, and we were heading back that day to Jonesboro. The next morning, he was so sick still, and just happenstance, my phone totally died, totally. And I had to go and get a new phone, not knowing that this was going to be my lifeline to the outside world for the next 84 days. I left Johnny, went and got the phone, came back. That night, I went in, I was doing all the things you do for the flu. And I went in the room, and the bed was literally shaking. And he had sweated so much it was down through the mattress. And took his temp, it was 104.2. So we rushed to the hospital, and I'm thinking, this is the flu. So where do I go? Franklin Woods. Mistake. So They did some blood tests which showed he did not have a heart attack, but it was something related to his heart, and he was in septic shock. So they immediately started pouring in fluids. They put 3 liters of fluids in him, was trying to get IVs on him. Well, anytime you come in with any trauma or anything going on like that, you always have 2 large bore IVs going. They couldn't get but 1 small. And you know how 1 small IV and 3 liters trying to push in wasn't working very well, but they couldn't get another IV in. So at this time, they stabilized him enough to send him by the rescue squad to the medical center. I don't know why, but they sent him down to a step-down unit, which I felt like he should have gone straight into ICU with what was going on. Well, they got him to the floor, and nobody could get an IV line again. And his blood pressure was going like 70 over 40. He dropped down to 60s over 30s. Sweating profusely still. He had not stopped that the whole time. His heart rates were in the 120s, 130s. And I could just see him going down and down. Well, I don't know if y'all all know it or not, but I'm a nurse, and I was an ER nurse. So I knew what I was looking at, I knew what was going on, and I knew the outcome was not looking good. So I said, I want to see the house supervisor. I want to see him now. So they called the house supervisor in, and they told me before she got there, they said, there is a process that has to be done here. And I said, I know there's a process, but I also know there's a protocol, and it's not being done. So all of a sudden, another right person at the right time came around the corner. I heard this very distinct voice. It was the house supervisor, but it was also a nurse that I sat with every day for a year, my first day of nursing school. Right person, right time. She came around the corner and I said, Joy, and she said, Claudia. She took one look at him and immediately whisked him out back to the ICU. When we got to the very door of his room, there was a cardiologist and an intensivist waiting for him. Now, how often does that happen? You usually get there and you have to wait. So they got him stabilized that evening, and they decided the next day, they were going to move him out of ICU onto this step-down unit. So blood pressures were stabilized, things were looking pretty good. So late afternoon, I decided to go to lunch. Things looked pretty stable. So I went to lunch, and when I came back, I ran into Joy, and Joy said, they're going to transfer him out, but she said, all the beds are full. And she said, of course it's flu season. She said, I've just got a feeling. She said, I'm going to leave him in ICU tonight. And if that's okay with you, and I'm not going to charge him an ICU rate. I said, that's fine with me. So when I got back upstairs to the room, there was another change. Johnny had taken a turn for the worse, and he was going downhill again. Well, I went out, and I kept talking to the nurse, and I kept telling him, you know, there's a change. And he said, he's stable. I said, he is not stable. I went in, and I showed him, I said, he was on the monitor, and he said, well, his MAP is normal. A MAP is a mean arterial pressure, which means that gives you the kind of fluctuation of what your blood pressure is. And as long as the MAP is good, they think you're fine. Well, he wasn't fine. And I told him, I said, last night when he was crashing, I said, his MAP was good, but he wasn't. So, another person, right place, right time. Two nurses came in, 2 house supervisor nurses came in, and they said, no, this was night shift. They said, Joy called us from home, and Joy wanted us to come in and check on you. Is there anything we can do? I said, yes. I said, I want a cardiologist in here. I want an intensivist in here. I want infectious disease in here. I said, I want them in here, and I want them now. Well, they got them there, and they disappeared. So, as soon as they got in there and they saw the change in his condition, man, they were on it. They put an art line in, which goes into the artery here, and it checks the blood pressure continuously. They immediately put a central line in, which gave them more IV access. They could give medication to him, and his blood pressure kept decreasing. And at this point, Johnny went into cardiogenic shock. And cardiogenic shock is when your heart can't pump enough to keep you alive or keep you going. Mortality rate without aggressive, high extensive medical care on cardiogenic shock is 70 to 90%. So the cardiologist came in and told me the only thing we can do at this point is put an impella in. And an impella is just about like what it sounds. It's a propeller. It goes up through the groin and it spins around and it pushes the blood through the heart. Took him to surgery, put the impella in, and brought him back out of surgery. The impella was not enough to sustain him. He was a big man. There wasn't enough blood to circulate even with what was going on there. So he was struggling. He was still sweating. His respirations were 30 to 40. You know, he couldn't go on like that. So at that time, I went down and I was going to rub his feet. I picked the sheet up, and the leg where the impella was, the whole foot was black. And it was turning black all the way up the whole leg to the groin. So they called in cardiovascular surgery. And at this point, you have to remember, we're on Christmas Eve. So it was kind of evident to everyone when vascular surgery came in, he's going to lose his leg. There's no question. It's either heart or it's the leg. And, you know, he can live without a leg. So all these things are going through my mind, and you're thinking, okay, what's it going to be like? He's going to be in a wheelchair. He's going to be on crutches. I mean, it's like 5 seconds of your whole life goes in front of you. So they went ahead, and he was struggling so much, they intubated him at that time. And at first, Johnny refused the intubation. He said no. He said, I'm not doing that. He said it costs too much. So if you know Johnny, that's him. I said, don't worry about it. We have insurance. And he said, oh, okay. He said, only for 2 to 3 weeks. That's it. Pull it if it's any longer than that. Pastor Karen came in Christmas Day, and she was there with us. The cardiologist said, you know, he's taking a turn for the worse. There isn't anything else we can do. I'm going home. So he left me, Johnny's 2 children, Pastor Karen. And there we stood, not knowing what to do. I reached out. I first sent an email, I believe, to Pam Ward. And Pam notified my sisters of faith. We have our little group that we have in the sisters. We're all on the same text line, so one text goes out, everybody gets it. And that went out Christmas Day. That was probably, I don't know, 11, 12, 1 o'clock, something like that, something in that area. And all of a sudden, I start getting all these text backs. It says, praying for you, praying, Johnny, praying for you. And I stood over Johnny, and I started reading. every one of these texts, just standing over him, reading, praying, praying, praying. Then I had one, I had said at that point, I want to go to Vanderbilt. And they said, well, he probably won't make it. I said, you mean he's either going to die here or he's going to die there? And they said, he'll probably die on the way there. And I said, I still want to go. So they said, well, you have to have a room available, you have to have a plane available, you have to have the right weather, you have to have a doctor available. And I said, I want to go to Randolph. So they said, it may not happen today. To get all of those things in order, it may be tomorrow before it can happen. I said, I want to go to Vanderbilt. So I'm praying. And then the most precious text came across, and it was from Jan McGee, one of my sisters of faith, and it said, may this be Johnny's Christmas miracle. And as soon as those words came out of my mouth, the nurse came to the door and said, Vanderbilt's on the way. Just like that. Another prayer. I mean, can you not see that these are miracles? I mean, it was just a flow of them. So we started on that, and at that point in time, I called my friend Joy, and I told her what had happened and what was going on, and she said, I'll be right there. So Joy came on Christmas Day, and she stayed with me through Christmas Day. And Philippians 4:6-7 says, don't worry about anything. Pray about everything. And of course, my sisters were praying, my church was praying, I was praying. Out of nowhere, here comes this cardiothoracic surgeon walking through ICU on his way home on Christmas to see his family. One of the nurses stopped them. He had nothing to do with my case or Johnny's case at all. Everybody that had been treating Johnny had left, except for the nurses. And the nurse stopped him and said, will you look at this chart? And he said, what do you have? And she said, just look at it. He looked at the chart. She said he put it down. He walked into our room. I had no idea who he was. He didn't introduce himself to me whatsoever. And he picked up a sheet. He looked at his leg. By then it was black up to the knee. They call it a dead leg. So he said, I could fix this. And he walked to the door. He turned around and he looked at me. Still didn't tell me who he was. He said, we'll be in surgery in 30 minutes. And I want you to know just how fast all this stuff went. I never one time signed a consent form for anything. Through anything at the med center. I'm telling you, not one form. So he went out, 30 minutes, he came back, took him to surgery. I found out during that time, through my friend Joy, the house supervisor, she was on top of everything. He had called Vanderbilt himself, one of the ECMO specialists, which ECMO is what Johnny was on. That's the venous arterial life support. It does all the pumping and all the breathing for the heart and the lung. And he made all of the arrangements to be sent. He called his wife and he told her what was going on. And He hadn't seen his kids in a long time. They were home from college. And his wife said, Christmas is forgiving. She said, pay it forward, go do your job. He said, I'll see you in about 6 hours. He went in and performed what's called a fasciotomy. Because of the leg, all the blood had pooled down in it. The fasciotomy is they put 3 slits in the lower part of his leg, which relieved all the compression that was going on. He pulled the impella out, which let the blood flow go back to the leg, and he put in the ECMO on the other groin. So he's got 2 large openings about this big on each side of the groin. The ECMO was so deep that when they did take it out, you could see his vein pulsing into the area there. I mean, it was large. He came out, when the doctor came out after he did the ECMO, he shook my hand and he said, Merry Christmas. And he walked off. You know, he slipped me his card, otherwise I would have never known who he was. He never consulted with any of Johnny's physicians whatsoever. During this time, when Johnny was in surgery, my daughter and her husband brought me Christmas dinner from home. I sat in the waiting room and I ate my Christmas dinner. I looked at Joy and I said, Joy, what am I going to do next year at Christmas? And she said, you will look back and say, this is a Christmas miracle. And I will. Another miracle, another blessing that we had. And the physician that did the surgery said, I saw him later at another time, and he said, you know, he said it was a miracle. Because he said, when I put the last suture in, the physician from Vanderbilt knocked on the door, and he was ready to take him away. He couldn't go in a helicopter. He had to go by airplane because there was such a large team and so much equipment with him being on the life-saving unit. After a couple of days when I was at ICU, I asked one of the physicians there what his chances were, and he said, well, it's too early to tell. Well, one of Johnny's respiratory therapists, who I became good friends with, still am, he was my rock. Anyway, he came over, he was a Christian, his name was Solomon. Can you believe that? Solomon means peace. And he put his arm around me and he said, you know, you're asking the wrong physician. And I said, you know, you're right. I never did ask any physician any time through any of this again. You know, what are our chances? And as a matter of fact, after that, I heard 2 physicians in the room talking and learning about his prognosis. And, you know, I kind of looked up and I perked up because the prognosis wasn't good. Because I said, what are they talking about? Because it had never crossed my mind again that he wasn't going to make it. I knew in my heart that it was done. You know, he was going to make it. It was just a matter of a process and time to get through this healing. While I was there also, David Babb's father, who was an associate minister somewhere in the area around Nashville, I'm not sure exactly where, but he came to me there, and he came up to the door. He handed me monetary money from our Sunday school class, which was much needed at the time, and said, this is from your Sunday school class. That was such a relief to see somebody, a familiar face, even though I didn't know him, but it was just the outside world. A little bit later, another lady came up, knocked on the window, didn't know who she was, beautiful lady, came out, she introduced herself, and it was Johnny's nephew's mother-in-law, and she worked right in there, you know, and it's like I have family right there with me, and she kept me up to date on procedures, different things. If I had questions and stuff, you know, she could answer that, you know, along the way. And during the time that Johnny was on the ECMO, he said there was a monster that chased him. He said it had a big square head, and he said it chased him for about a week. He said he was so scared, so scared. And he didn't know if he was hearing the machine or, you know, something in the room, if it was the medications. Now, he's sedated through all of this. He has no contact with any of us. But he said also in the room, he thought it was a doctor standing in the corner, but he was taller than the door. But he stood there the whole time. He never said anything, and he never left. So he said he just got so scared from that monster chasing him. Finally, he said, Lord, you said you wouldn't put any more on me than I can handle, and I'm going to hold you to it. At that point, the monster went away. And he said, he tried to reach for him, and his hand went through the neck. But it wasn't there. Monster left. Big man in the corner never left. He was always there. And through the rest of this, Johnny never had any more fear. He never was depressed. Not a day through any of this. He never was scared. And believe it or not, after he was off the ECMO, Johnny never had any pain. And he never took any pain medicine. I don't even think he took a Tylenol through any of this. Nothing. So, this is a neat one. 3 days prior to his extubation, to take him off the ventilator, they came in, tried to wean him off. Couldn't get him off the ventilator. Not at all. So, they were going to let him rest again and try it again the next day. So they tried it again the next day. Still could not get him off the ventilator. Then they started talking to me about doing a trach on him. Putting the trach in.